Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to tonight's show. Tonight's show is slightly different. It's the first one that's been done. It's the first. I'm just monitoring this on. I'm just monitoring tonight's show on the phone, and it's we've got people watching, but for some reason it's coming out all gobbledygook. So let me just come out of that. And if you're watching tonight's show, then give us a. If you're watching tonight's show, in fact, I can see people watching tonight's show. You're welcome. Stick up the word coffee in the comments so that we know you are a coffee-loving aficionado, and that's the reason you're here on Coffeedog.ie. My name is Big Joe Shep. You're welcome, and tonight we are speaking to a cigar-smoking, coffee-roasting, coffee-loving, rugby-loving aficionado of life, the founder of Coffeedog.ie, Johnny Pullen. Johnny, good evening and welcome. How are you, mate? Welcome to your show. Oh, I tell you what, I think he is still on mute. There you go, Johnny. Try me now.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
Excellent. Good evening, Joe. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Welcome to the show, to your show. The first is a series of what we are calling Chats with Coffee. We'll talk about coffee, we'll talk about life, and we'll talk about rugby, and we'll talk about all types of things. So, I was really interested today, John, because we're gonna speak about Coffeedog.ie, Coffeedog Limited, why he set it up, and everything else. But I was reading today that I know the health benefits of coffee, but it is obviously it's a major source of caffeine for students and employees. According to Business Insider, coffee is the second most sought after commodity in the whole wide world, with an industry that's worth over 100 billion, and it's rising about 5.5 compound annual growth year on year. That's absolutely massive. So, before we go into why coffee is so good and why you started, tell us a little bit about yourself. You are Johnny Pullen, but where you're from, what have you done in your life, and how did you get into being involved with coffee?
Well, I've lived all over the world, mostly in Ireland. I spent some time on the continent, in Czech Republic and in France, and they take their coffee a lot more seriously over there. Certainly in those days, maybe not today. Maybe today we're starting to catch up a bit. I'm a trained chef. I've owned restaurants and bars, and part of the parcel of that is coffee. And the more you get into your coffee, the more you're going to like your coffee. So I came back to Ireland about 25 years ago, and I had a very nice little cafe over here, and I worked in retail. And how I got into coffee was I got into a partnership with a nice little Italian gentleman, and we started importing coffee pods, Nespresso compatible, and they went very well. But after a while, I found it a little bit sterile. I wanted to get more into the production side of it, the roasting side of it, and beans was the natural pathway. So for the last 3 years, I've been importing beans, roasting beans, blending beans, packaging beans, and selling beans. So it's been good.
Yeah, absolutely. When you first started out, did you think that? Did you have any idea that you would actually get into setting up a coffee business, or was it just purely for the love of the coffee itself and to get some good coffee yourself?
It was the love of it. To be honest with you, a small niche business like this, you don't get into because you want to be a tycoon or a successful businessman. You get into it because you love the product. You fall in love with the product. You fall in love with the process. You fall in love with what you're doing and the people you deal with. There's 25 million coffee farmers around the world, which just shows you how small and intimate it is. Most of these have maybe an acre. On average, they have about 18 coffee trees between them. They all work in cooperatives. I suppose the nearest thing you can compare it to would probably be the wine industry, except there's a lot less players. There's a lot less big conglomerates, the ones that you have in Australia or America. So I enjoyed the intimacy of it. I enjoyed the way you can actually create a product from scratch. You can take a raw material and with a bit of knowledge, a bit of luck, and a bit of care, you can turn it into something a little bit special.
Yeah, superb. I like to say about the niche and the intimacy of it. There are some very big players out there. The wine industry. I'm a wine angel with Naked Wines. Supporting small niche little wine growers that deserve the same thing. So I think it's it's a fab by me if I could if I could get you to sell dark chocolate and Malbec and do that as well, we'd be into
Well,
business.
at the very start of my website, I did sell some really good chocolate made by a very lovely lady called Rhoda, and she sells her own chocolate now, Rhoda Chocolate, and it's absolutely superb. And she's a real artisan at what she does. Unfortunately, not enough people bought it on my website, so I couldn't keep it there. So I blame you, Joe.
Yeah, oh, well, I didn't know you at that point, mate. Had I done, then you would have been my go-to. But there we go. I'll have to sort of check it out. Listen, John? What's the key difference between the beans that we get? You know, for people who are watching, maybe on Coffee Aficionados, the beans we get and say instant coffee.
Well, I suppose the easiest way to sum that up is the last thing that goes into a jar of instant coffee, and they artificially inject this, is the smell of coffee.
Really?
That's the very last thing they do. They inject it in and they put a seal on top of it. Instant coffee is, if you liked it, then I'm not going to judge you. You drink what you want to drink, but it's the sweepings up off the floor. It's like a Hamlet cigar. It's not quite the same as a Cuban cigar. It is the sweepings up of the floor. It's all sorts of different beans, and they get put through the ringer. They're ground and roast down to nothing, which means you have a huge amount of caffeine in there, and the caffeine is never extracted in the process. So once you actually put your boiling water into it, you're getting a lot of caffeine and not a lot of good caffeine. It's the nearest way I could really describe it was saying it's like a Hamlet cigar compared to a Cuban cigar. If you want quality,
and other cigars as well of that ilk.
Oh yes. I'm not even sure Hamlet exists anymore, but yes, no, it's just no judgment on Hamlet.
No, absolutely, but yeah, I see your whole range of cigars are again, Bella Coffee aficionado on the cigar front as well, and the personality of life, actually, to be honest, Johnny Cullen, which is good. Listen, where do you get your coffee from, and what's the process that you have? You know, I know that you roast it yourself.
Well, the best coffee is a commodity, so it's bought from dealers. So it's sold in very large, like stock exchanges, except for commodities. So I deal with the dealers and buy coffee of them directly. Unfortunately, the dealers would be about 4 or 5 people down from the actual growers. So as things progress, the growers get less and less of the actual piece of pie. I import it then I would actually create the recipe. Now, some of these beans, it would be just a purely beautiful bean. So all you do is decide on what sort of roast, whether it's a light roast, a dark roast, or a medium roast. Then you would manufacture it and package it. But then others, like my Full Swing, that's a combination of 3 different types of beans from 3 different countries. And those are the ones I really like making. That's the fun things where you're kind of going through having lots of failures, I'll put it that way, before you come across a little recipe that you really like.
Yeah, superb. And do you have a big place to? Is it difficult to roast coffee? I say that on a large scale because when I was in Bosnia in '95, we everywhere you went into the little houses and they literally put green beans into a frying pan,
Yep.
roasted them there and then within minutes it went from the actual green bean itself to the thickest coffee, obviously, as you well know, that you've ever seen. But doing it on a larger scale, like you have to do.
Well, you're exactly right there. Anybody can roast coffee from green beans. Once they've actually been dried, once they've gone from a cherry to a green bean, you can roast it in a frying pan or a skillet or anything like that. Getting into a volume, then you need a larger manufacturing process, which would the key difference would be consistency. You can actually program the machine the heat for the amount of time they're actually there, and the actual spin cycle you put it on. Because some of these machines, there will be a slower cycle, which means the beans get turned slower. Some of them you with a higher heat with a slower spin, which means you get a darker roast. And a lot of beans, it's like grapes. A lot of beans mix well with other beans. A lot of beans don't, because there's only 2 real beans in the world. There's a Robusta and Arabica. But depending where these are grown, what height, what temperature, what humidity, where they are in regard to the equator, they all have different flavor profiles.
Okay, exactly the same as a grape, then, isn't it? Really,
It's exactly, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you bring yours in, and then you have them you roast them over here, and then you package them and all in country and all. So it's a truly small Irish niche business.
Yep, it's 100% Irish.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, clearly I have it, because you are now the official supplier to Three Blokes, a Ball and Bod, the global online weekly rugby show, which is great. And two of my favourites arrived on my replen late last week, monthly replen, which is fab. Full Swing and Honey Finker. I mean, the Colombian is fine, and the Italian fine is great, it's superb. But those two, have got to be tried to be believed.
It's personal taste, Joe. Everyone has a different taste. I have my own personal favorites, and they may not be the most best-selling ones, but it is literally about, and I also find it's about the time of day and the mood you're in. The Full Swing is a really good breakfast coffee.
Yeah.
There's a lovely bit of Vietnamese in there, which gives it a bit of heft and a bit of dark roast. And I like to get woken up by a coffee rather than have me wake up to coffee.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way of health benefits. Yeah, what do you think coffee? What does coffee do for us?
Well, health benefits. There's more antioxidants in coffee than there is in fruit, which is a general everyday benefit. When you get to the big ones like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, MS, all of these have been proven that a regular steady intake, and we're talking between 3 and 4 cups of coffee a day, will actually reduce your chance of getting these to quite a high level. Across the board, cancer, it's knocked it down a bit. It reduces your stress levels. The big one, the recent one, is it's shown that it increases the sex drive of the female by 20%. But before you say anything, Joe, that's only been proven in rats so far, so perhaps we should gloss over that at the moment.
Oh, I'm going to try that anyway. Try it for 90 days. See if we get away with it for a start, mate. Right, yeah, you're right. And I knew obviously it was an antioxidant. Quite interestingly, I have 2 pots during the day. On the go, we have one in the morning, tend to have one in the afternoon. I might even have one sort of interesting when you say don't drink coffee late at night. Actually, I find it really helps unwind. A nice strong coffee helps me unwind. But I always choose 2 beans, because obviously we get the beans in, we've got a zzz, and I always chew 2 beans, and it's just become a habit now. I really, really enjoy it.
And I bet it helps your digestion as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, massively so. And it's from an antioxidant point of view, it's a bit like red wine with the resveratrol in the red wine from the res grape. It's simple things like that which help. in a world at the moment that we're unfortunately, despite what some people are saying online, the coronavirus is fast becoming a pandemic, and it will be. So all these people that who are saying it's only they're like flu, we lose more flu, just naive, grossly naive. From a health point of view, it's when you pointed out before about how it lowers the stress level, we've discussed it many times. We live in an overpaced, overcomplicated, stressful world. I'm not talking about post-traumatic stress disorder or things like that. We're talking about daily the stress, anxiety, poor management of expectations at home and in the workplace. It's like that rat race. It's the daily commute, all of those things. So actually, and of course it's cheaper. I mean, 67 or 73% I think of people don't have a proper breakfast, and then they get to between 11 and 1, and they're hungry, so they're hungry and they're angry. And if they do buy something, then they buy one of these coffees to go from a certain type of coffee shop, all of which have sprouted up in recent years. And yet, if you got a monthly order of this and made it yourself in a container to go, that's going to save you a fortune and be healthier for you than some of the ones you're going to buy.
And as well as that, Joe, the continent is a scientific fact that on the continent they have lower levels of stress, certainly towards the Mediterranean. And part of that is because people will sit down in a cafe and have a cup of coffee. They'll do it 1, 2, 3 times a day. The whole coffee to go culture, you're walking along drinking a hot beverage, you're not focusing on anything, you're not enjoying the beverage. We just need to every now and again just take 5, 10 minutes out of our lives, sit down, have a cup of coffee or tea or whatever, and just take a deep breath, look around you, smile at someone who's sitting near you. Just back away from all the stress for a bit, because one of the reasons why I like smoking cigars, and one of the reasons why I really like having coffee, is it takes time. It takes time. It's nice to every now and again pause, because everything is so quick and everything is so dramatic and everything is so right now. So isn't it nice to actually just take a bit of time to yourself and have a nice cup of coffee, enjoy it, taste it, savor it, take a look around you, look at the people around you, look at the fools running by with their takeaway coffee from something bucks, and laugh at them and just take some time out for yourself, because in this day and age, you just really, really need to look after yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, the whole way.
Yeah, this goes back to those 5 pillars, doesn't it? And the mental health and dietary health, mental health, physical health, social health, and financial health. If your bike is on the go, it's costing you more money. Yeah, and like you say, you're rushing around, and it's just it is a crazy life that we find ourselves in. And tell us your love a little bit, your love of rugby, because obviously you support Three Blokes Ball and Ball, which is fine. You're also a moderator on one of the leading Irish rugby forums as well. What does that do? I mean, is that all tied in as part of your great lifestyle?
I hope so. I have a couple of little pet peeves which I try to, in some way, enact in my life. I hate labels. I think labels are dangerous. I think the labeling of people, calling people snowflakes or conservatives or liberals. We all have so many different things inside us, so many different opinions on, on every sort of matter. So just putting a label on someone is dangerous. And when you're moderating, it's just, there's so many people out there who are saying things to people online who would never ever dream of saying anything to people to their faces. And I don't get that. It's all recorded. You're accountable no matter what happens. So why are you cursing at someone you've never met before in your life? Why are you degrading someone who might have had just a really bad day? They might have said something silly, but they might be just having a really bad day. So if you're not going to prepare to say it to someone in the street, if you're not prepared to say it to a member of your family or friends, why are you doing it to a complete stranger? You're not anonymous. You're an idiot. You just need to think about people a bit. What's the new phrase? Just be kind. Maybe do that a little bit.
Yeah, it is, and it does, and we all get sucked into it from time to time. I've been very open about how I've been sucked into things in the last couple of years, and I just took a step back and said I will not do it anymore, because it's unacceptable to do so. And I think I was talking to a number of people last week. There was a group of people online we were chatting, and I think that the digital virtual world, Johnny, has brought us closer together, but in real terms, we're probably further apart now than we ever were.
Massively.
And you're absolutely right. We have this disdain of people. It's our street, our village, our town, our city. We're okay in our street, but we hate people in the next street.
Yeah.
We hate people in the next town. Or the next village, or whatever. It's just crazy. We've both been around the globe a lot. We've both done a lot of different things, and we've seen. We're not talking about religion. We're just talking about somebody living in a different group. It goes back to the whole blue eyes and brown eyes thing. And it's just
someone supporting a different rugby team.
Oh, blimey, the vitriol that you get. And I tell you what, I almost want to make enough money in life where I genuinely find a complete arsehole online who's losing it, and you can tell they're losing it and say, right, send them a friend request and say, right, I'm going to send you a pack of this, and just promise me you'll take 5 minutes in the day out to have a cup of decent coffee, think about things, and then go back. Wouldn't that be a great thing to do?
I'm in.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to come on to the end about your very generous act about the discount you're going to give for people, through Three Blokes Ball and Bob, which is fun. Because you not only deliver in Ireland, but you deliver across the globe now, don't you?
Yep, everywhere in the world. As far as I know, I mean, I've gone to subcontinent, to America, Europe, Britain, because we have to say Europe and Britain now because they're not the same, obviously. Australia, New Zealand, South Africa. But if there is a country that is not listed on my delivery details, just email me at johnny@coffeedog.ie and I will sort it out. And I will sort it out there and then. There isn't a country in the world that I won't send it to. Except maybe North Korea, because I don't think they want it. But there you go.
I think they're gonna need all the coffee beans in the world to be able to come down there, aren't they? You know? Although there's somebody in America who probably could do with a couple of cups of coffee as well, but that's strategy, a little bit of politics as opposed to looking like tango.
No, we're not going to get politics, Joe. Jesus Christ, we're not going to politics.
We put these people there. What we need to do is every time they go in, we need to send them a free bag of coffee. The growth industry in Ireland, I mean, we know that's grown sort of globally, 5.5% annual compound growth. How have you found it over the last, say, 2 to 5 years in Ireland and the UK? Is it growing as much as around the globe?
Coffee, well, the only part of the coffee industry that is actually declining is instant coffee. Instant coffee is going up about 23% year on year because it just isn't very good. No offense to any instant coffee producers out there, but it just isn't very good. And people get more and more. I mean, look, I remember the 80s when drinking wine in Ireland was a choice of Black Tower or Blue Nun. But now you have people develop a taste. They go abroad. And it's exactly the same with coffee. You know, when you've sat outside a cafe in Portugal or in Vienna and you're having a really, really good coffee, coming back home to having a branded instant coffee, it's not the same. And it's no longer aspirational. It's affordable. It's in the country. And there are so many things we don't treat ourselves about. Coffee is a nice, easy one. It's a nice one. It's a cheap one. There's a lot of different ways to actually get it into your delivery methods. You can have a nice machine. You can have a plunger. You can have a cafetiere. You can have an AeroPress. Whatever. I mean, I do ground. I will freshly grind the coffee for you to send it to you. You can do it any way you want, and it's a lot cheaper.
Well, when I first started, that was the first I did from you. I've known you through the rugby. And you sent me some ground coffee albums, which surprised me because I was expecting beans, and we had a sort of little mini blender thing that we have anyway, and it was fab, and it was like instant coffee, but beans instant coffee. If you're with me, it was just fab. And then it was like, the gentleman said, get the beans. So we got the beans, and we just tried different ones, and of course now it's just the absolute go-to thing. To have, and I'm glad that we've been able to introduce lots of people to you and to it as well, because I as many people know, I put my name to people or to products or services that I believe in through the forum, and we use the platform as an opportunity to be able to do that for people. So when people say, would I have edify anything, if it brought in some support or something? No, is the answer. If I don't believe in if I don't believe in the person, then that, and as we found last year, working with somebody, and it just wasn't working, and I walked away from, a substantial amount, of support, because it just, sometimes you've got to be true to yourself, really. Ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome to tonight's show. I am Joe Shepherd, and I'm chatting with the founder of Coffeedog.ie, Mr. Johnny Pullen, and we're chatting about some more things. There we go. And that is the website you can go to, www.coffeedog.ie. We'll just leave that running along the bottom for the time. And actually, it's a good time to say, you are now the official supplier to Three Blokes, a Ball and Bob, the global online weekly rugby show. And if you go to coffeedog.ie and you put your order in, and you go the promotional code at the end, and you put the 4 letters in SHEP. That's SHEP, as in SHEP.
All capitals.
Huh? All capitals.
All capitals.
All capitals. SHEP. There's only one SHEP. Promotional code SHEP, SHEP, and you will get 20% off by virtue of our joint venture through the platform, which I have taken behalf of everybody, because we have introduced this to a lot of people, and will continue to do so. Because one of the great things is being able to see somebody who is decent getting on well in life and succeeding, and that has priceless, my good friend. So offering 20% off. Go to Coffeedog.ie, put your order in, put in Shep, SHEP, and you'll get 20% off your order. And of course, the good thing is that if people aren't sure of what type of coffee, etc., you can contact you at johnny@coffeedog.ie.
Yep.
And they can ask you, or they can find you online. Send a message to Coffeedog. To Coffeedog.ie, the Facebook page as well. We'll answer back to them there as well. And yeah, listen, what are your that's fab, mate. I really appreciate you doing that for people. Where are you going next? What do you want to see in the next sort of 12, 24 months for Coffeedog?
Look, it's all financially driven. So if it continues the way it's continuing now, which is we're doing okay. My next major thing is to cut out the middleman and go directly to cooperatives in the actual native countries. So I can give them more of the money that they deserve, and they can actually produce beans pretty much directly on order. Now, they're all small cooperatives, so it doesn't have to be a massive order, but I would much rather give them a larger chunk of the money rather than, finance guys, brokers, guys in pinstripe suits, Gordon Gekko types. I'd rather give them the money because they're having a tough time. Coffee prices have gone down worldwide and will continue to go down. And that's only affecting the suppliers, the people who are actually making it. It's not affecting the middlemen. It's not affecting their percentage. It's just affecting the poor farmers. And like I said, it's 25 million. There's 150 million people worldwide who actually get their living directly from coffee. That's 150 million people, and 99% of them are just little farmers, little smallholders. And if I can actually do a little bit for them, and it will only be a little bit, I'm not kidding myself, I'm not going to be a tycoon out of this, but if I can buy directly from the farmer, I will sleep better at night. People get a better deal on their coffee, and they will feed their family more.
It's almost like it's lacking a, I'm thinking of this as you're talking. I didn't realise it to that great extent. It's a bit like, I get nothing from them for using their name, but Naked Wines, I support them as an angel investor, small bit each month, because that goes to small winemakers and helps them. Yes, they are middle people, but actually the amount of money we save by them corralling it all together is great. It's a bit like years ago we used to sponsor children through Plan International World Vision and that type of thing.
Yeah.
We have a small little thing for looking after. It's almost like Patreon, patronising the small coffee things, and that's what you're sort of looking to do, which I didn't know. I think it says. Doesn't surprise me, and it says an awful lot about you still, mate. And that's
I still want to make money, though, Joe. I still want to make money. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, we all do, and that's one of the things. Isn't it? It's a tipping point in life between being nice and making a living. And sometimes actually we can go the other side of it because you can be nice and wanting to help people, whereas actually. Money is time, or time is money, and so is help and assistance. So, but listen, I'm a huge fan of karma in life, Johnny Cullen, and I think what you give out, you're going to get back. Listen, we're going to finish off there. We're going to have a number of these where we chat about. Next time we do one, probably once every 90 days we'll do one, and next time we'll pick a coffee. And we'll explain exactly what it is and how it's made, and it fascinates me now. I can't, because it's like my two things. I love the Colombian and I love the Brazil Fine Cup and I love all them. And actually, you're right. At different times of the day or whatever, it depends on different flavors. And actually, I'm becoming more accustomed to the different flavors and things and understanding a little bit more about them. They get me.
What you need to do now, Joe, is start making your own blends because you have different varieties of coffee there. You can actually make your own blends.
Well, interesting you say that. I because I have some bags on the go. I meant to say to you, last week I had a honey finca and I had some. It was either Colombian or Brazil, and I had a little bit left of both and put them together, and I was like, "Oh my god! Where did that?" It was just like because you get used to the taste of one or another, and this one was totally different. But I couldn't remember then afterwards.
You can have to start writing things down.
Absolutely, yeah. But I've got honeyed finca, and a honeyed finca is, I mean, just the smell of it is absolutely
Yeah.
amazing. And
Okay.
then you
The
create
whole honey thing is, before people get confused, the honey thing has nothing to do with honey or sweetness. It's a particular way they dry it by hand. It's very, very labor intensive, but it actually gives it a slight little sweet taste in the back of your mouth. It's full of texture, full of layers. It's a very, very sophisticated coffee, but there is no honey in it. There is no sweetness in it. It's just a particular drying method, a very labor intensive drying method, where they're literally turning each of the cherries by hand on an hourly basis.
wow. I'm going to thing, but we're not trying because I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you to explain one thing to people. Okay, so people starting off. So they go to Coffeedog.ie, and they've had sort of coffees at certain shops and stuff like that. And it is all about taste. So you might be able to say, well, they need to contact us because everybody is different. But if you were recommending one to start with as a general all-round coffee, you go to Coffeedog.ie. Which one do they pick?
I would go with the first coffee I ever made, which is the Italian blend. It would be the closest coffee style to something you'll get in a very good coffee shop.
That's the Italian espresso, isn't it?
Yep. And it's got 75% Arabica, 25% Robusta. The Robusta comes from India. It's an Indian parchment, so that gives it the layer and the depth, and that enables it to be drunk as an espresso. Or you can put your latte in there. You can put your, I wouldn't recommend milk, but that's just me. You can make it into any coffee style you like, but it's a very good basic coffee and very similar to the ones you get in a very good independent coffee shop. None of the ones that are chained, but the good. And look, you don't have to buy off me, but there's some brilliant independent coffee shops out there that do brilliant work. And if you go and get a coffee off them, you'll see the difference compared to the chains. It is a complete different world.
And people can make that. I make on Thursday and Friday when Jill goes off she works two different places as a dog groomer, and on the Thursday I make her coffee and it goes in her container, which goes on the road, and the same on the Friday. So what you need to do, ladies and gents, you need to go to coffeedog.ie. Coffeedog.ie, it's along the bottom there, and then put your order in. And Johnny's recommendation is to look at the Italian mix to begin with as a general one to start, and then when you get to the end, you put the promotion code SHEP SHEP in, and he's very generously going to give you 20% off. Do that, and again, if you've got any questions for Johnny or about coffee, or you want to learn a little bit more, or just anything, you're not obliged to buy anything. Johnny isn't that type of person. In fact, he's just said,
Just say hello. I'm lonely. Say hello.
He's trying to make, he wants to make money, and yet again, genuinely, his generosity says, you don't have to buy from him. You do, because he's a bloody good man, and his stuff is great. But he's right. There are lots of good small providers out there. But go to coffeedog.ie, have a look at the Italian blend to start with. Put the promotion code SHEP in there. We get 20% off. And Johnny, we were back in 90 days where we look at some other things about life. We'll look at some other things about rugby. Hopefully, in that, or whatever you believe in, God, Mother Nature, or the universe, that we find some solutions to the coronavirus, because it is a serious thing. And you know what? If you have to close down sport and event for 12 months to be able to help them, so be it.
Absolutely. It's only a game. It's only a game.
It is only a game. All of these sports, and I know that athletes, they train for years and years, the Olympic stuff like that. But at the end of the day, we need to all do our little bit as well. It has been a pleasure speaking to you. We will speak again in 90 days, and every 90 days we will pick a different coffee that we'll go through and explain to how it's done, how it's made. And I need to remember when I'm mixing coffees to start mixing coffees now and writing down what proportions and which ones are mixing. Think of it, you see. Think of that. There you go. But there you go. Go to coffeedog.ie and use the promotion code SHEP, and we will be back. If you've got any questions, then just put them onto the Facebook page. You can email Johnny at coffeedog.ie as well. John, leave us with one part and gesture of to do with coffee and lifestyle, and again, just remind people why really we should be investing. It's actually saving money by buying decent coffee and taking it with you on the road.
Well, it's very simple. you can get something which is really good and it's going to cost you a lot less than something that's really bad. So if you like something, try and get the best you can of something. And with coffee, when you're doing your own coffee, you're actually paying. When you go into Dublin and a coffee will cost you €4 or €5, you can buy a bag of coffee from me from that. You
Yeah.
know, it just I don't understand it. With everything else, it's not like going into a pub and buying a pint, and it's very hard to put an analogy on it, but it's just coffee tastes good. If you like the taste of coffee, try and get the best coffee you can. And if you do it yourself and you buy it yourself, it's going to save you money. And there's so many different methods of actually brewing coffee. There's a lot of stuff out there. AeroPress is wonderful. If you like to use a plunger but are sick and tired of waiting for it, AeroPress, you can go from zero to a beautiful cup of coffee in 30 seconds.
Wow, we need to discuss that because we've got a plunger system, which actually part of the process is quite cathartic. Heating got
Yes.
water in it, heating it, grinding the coffee beans, putting it in. But then sometimes when I'm in the bed, I'm like, I'd like a coffee now, and I have to go out, you know. So in my stress, I just go, put in the coffee because even the coffee just. Oh, that's good. Listen, it's been a real pleasure talking to you, mate.
And thank you very much.
What we're doing for the rugby community, because I know that you are showing what you're doing throughout the rugby community in both hemispheres, and we look forward to having you back on again. And just from
Great pleasure.
go to Coffeedog.ie, send a message to Johnny at Coffeedog.ie, throw us a message up on the Facebook page, and we'll get back to you. And until then, I've been Big Joe Shep. This has been Johnny Pullen, founder of Coffeedog.ie, and we'll see you all again soon. Thanks, John.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.